And setting up your meeting for Facebook Live. Fingers crossed.
Nope, there it was. Oops.
Okay, we're now streaming live on Facebook. I hope that, Gable, can you kind of see if people are checking in or popping in to say hi to us?
Yep.
All right, that'd be awesome.
Let me see. There we go. Okay.
Did you get it?
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Okay, can you pay attention to what you got it?
Great.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we have people coming in.
All right, guys, we're going to give it a few minutes to welcome everybody. So please gather into Hollywood Kitchen. Settle in. We've got a very fun episode for you today and something I think you all might really want to make at home. It's quick, easy, tasty, and a perfect treat considering the sweltering summer heat wave we are going through right now. Abel, are people checking in?
Yep. Lots of people are saying. Lots of people are saying hi.
Hi.
Can you guys hear me okay? Because I've got a fan on and stuff.
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Oh, good.
Yeah, this is a cooking.
So I thought I'll introduce you guys. We'll talk about the recipe, we'll make it, and then we'll kind of go into the fun part of the show. So we'll wait about 2 more minutes.
My most precious, valuable.
Right. I love that you have a neon sign in your kitchen, Darin. That is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's 9 signs last time I counted, and we have,
that is so cool. I love it.
we have 2 in our kitchen alone.
Do what?
We have 2 in our kitchen alone. We have this one, which is actually it's really cool. It's the Zodiac Room, which was a cocktail bar.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and Eric rescued that out of the garbage.
Eric is like the Indiana Jones of neon.
He definitely is.
And you can use that quote, by the way, too, if you want to. That's
He just brought me a
Give us another minute, guys, and then right at 1 o'clock we'll get started. Gable, does it do a speaker view, or how does it do when you see it on Facebook? Like,
You know, it's on speaker view, so can you change it to gallery?
I just changed it to gallery. Can you see it better now, Gable?
There's a delay, so we need to.
Let me just reload it too. Yeah, there's a giant delay.
There you go.
Is it working now?
Yep.
There we go. Yeah, we're good now.
Okay, it's 1 o'clock, so I would like to welcome everybody to Hollywood Kitchen, and where we make recipes of movie stars from Hollywood's golden age. Hey, today I am really delighted to welcome back 2 of my very special friends and guests. We have Christina Rice, the Ann Dvorak biographer, collector, and expert, and her daughter Gable, who I am delighted to have as our moderator today. And of course, Darin Barnes, Norma Shearer expert. One of the many reasons they are back is because it's like 100+ degrees in LA right now. We're having a horrible heat wave. We was going through a whole bunch of recipes, and I found a coffee mousse that has been attributed to Ann Dvorak, Norma Shearer, very appropriately, and Ginger Rogers. We all 3 talked about these recipes, and we all agreed that the Ann Dvorak coffee mousse recipe was really the easiest to make, and we've all made it this week. We're gonna talk about that, talk about the results, make it, and then we'll dive into the fun part, which is all the memorabilia and crazy stories that we have for you today. So they need to crowd those wild button on social media, but give up a hand, please, for Gable, Christina Rice, and Darin Barnes. Yay, Papa's Wild. Okay, so we'll go ahead, I guess, right now and start off about making the coffee parfait. We each made it the other night. Again, it's the easiest of these recipes, but we all kind of had some mixed results. So Christina, tell me about the vegan version that you attempted and what happened with that.
Yeah, so I tried to make a vegan, slightly more health conscious version where I used almond milk and tofu that I blended, and then I added some vegetable oil to give it like a fat content, and then added our powdered sugar and coffee per the recipe. It tasted good. The taste was actually really good. The consistency was not.
It was like a solid block of ice, kind of.
It was.
So we tried like cutting it up, kind of like a spoon, like chopping it up, and that kind of made it like coconut shavings or something.
Which wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad. I didn't taste it.
No, because you don't.
And then we put it in the fridge overnight, and it liquidized it.
And then the oil kind of rose to the top, and I dumped it down the sink because I decided I wasn't going to eat it. So so today I did have some whipping cream left over from a previous recipe, so that's what I will be using today.
Okay, and Darin, how did your experiment go with this?
Well, with the whipping cream, the hard part with that is unless you have a KitchenAid like Christina has or some sort of blender, you know, as Carrie and I did, we whipped this for a good half hour, and we got.
Yeah, my arm was hurting from sitting.
They were hurting, and we didn't get it to really stiffen up too much. So I just did that, and it's really easy. It's just 2 cups of heavy whipping cream, half a cup of strong coffee, which I got Sanka, so I just got, which is really easy, and I got decaf, so it won't keep you up, and then and a half a cup of powdered sugar, and you just mix it and put it in the refrigerator. So I did what Christina did, stuck it in the freezer. It became one big hard lump. Moved it over the refrigerator, and then as it was thawing out, I would just, as the instructions say, I would stir it every little bit for 3 hours, and it actually took all the ice chunks out of it, and it was actually pretty good. Like Eric and I both ate it the other night.
Mine turned out, I put mine in the freezer late at night and then woke up the next morning, and it was very hard, but what I did is I got a spoon under some hot water, and then I kind of scraped at mine, and it wound up being kind of the consistency of a coffee-flavored, really creamy snow cone. And for my final product presentation, I scraped all the ice, I put a little dollop of whipped cream on it, and then I found one of those, you know those coffee espresso chocolate sticks they keep right by the cash register at Trader Joe's, which never fail to tempt me. I had one of those in the fridge, so I took a cheese grater to it, grated it up, and then sprinkled it on top. So I think at the end of the day, it turned out pretty well. And considering how hot it is, it's cool and icy, and that's plenty enough to make me happy. So. All right. Well, do you want to go ahead and make our new version of it right now?
Make it.
Okay.
All right.
We've got the 2 cups of whipping cream.
I only have a cup, so I'm cutting my recipe in half.
Oh, no problem. You know what I was thinking? The taste is very subtle and mild, but also kind of a little bland. I may be adding a pinch of cinnamon and nutmeg to mine. I kind of want to see if that does anything.
I thought the coffee I have, because I just have iced coffee in the house, and mine was it was a raspberry chocolate coffee, so it might be quite good.
What brand is that?
And I'm just cutting a corner, and I just got Cool Whip. So.
Okay, now I'm going to add the half cup of powdered sugar.
Bones coffee.
Oh wait, it's what kind?
Bones coffee. It's a mail order coffee. It's quite good. And I just have to.
That is so on brand for me. I'm gonna have to try that. Okay, I'm gonna try stirring. I can't sit here and stir for a full 30 minutes like the other night, but I'm gonna stir the whipping cream a little bit.
You have a question.
Okay.
And I have my cup of coffee and my Norma Shearer cup. That's the.
I have a question.
Oh, how awesome! So on brand, I love it.
Go ahead, baby.
We have a question from Chris Freeney. What year was this recipe published? Fridges before about 1940s didn't really freeze enough to keep store-bought ice cream or frozen food frozen, but they were cold enough to make like a granita or sorbet. So sorbet.
What year is the recipe?
I believe it's from the Food and Fashion cookbook from 1935. Is that correct, Darin? I think that was from your cookbook. The Food and Fashion from 1935.
Yeah, and then Ann's was 35, and then Norma's was like 33. So they're all like early to mid 30s. And in, the directions actually say, what was it? Put in your automatic refrigerator. So it doesn't really,
Automatic refrigerator pan.
yeah. So it doesn't really specify like where you're supposed to put it or if that's really a freezer. So
And we also have a comment of somebody who made something similar.
I'm going to go ahead and add my half cup of powdered sugar.
We have a comment from somebody.
From Heather Christine Ripley. We have a comment saying, I made something similar with sweetened condensed milk and lemon juice in the freezer. Comes out delicious.
Oh.
that's good.
And by the way, if you guys are making this at home, it's really fun to interact. That kind of makes us feel a lot less alone these days. At least it certainly does for me. So if you make this, if you take a picture of it, if you try it, post it online. Tag all of us. Let us know how your cooking experiment went and what you were able to make here. Like I said, I'm going to add a little bit of cinnamon and nutmeg to mine just to see if I can kind of spice it up a bit, or jazz it up in some fashion.
I'll say the recipe also calls for us to sift our powdered sugar, but none of us own sifters, and we figured it was okay.
Yeah, it works.
And also there's a comment saying, Carrie, you need a hand mixer.
Carrie, you
I do have a blender, but the thing is, it's going to be really loud, and then it's going to fly all over the place. Probably. I mean,
I hope mine's not loud.
I could try it though if you guys are willing to bear with me a minute.
Yeah, and Carrie, I have a vintage hand mixer that my grandmother bought at Sears in 1947, and it weighs like 10 pounds, but it's like an actual hand one. And I'll dig it out, and you can have it.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
It still works, but it's really, really heavy.
Let me show you the one that I do have. I'll be right back. You can't see it in our episodes, but I have a little wall in my kitchen right next to the stove. And my family lives in Georgia. And when I was home at Christmas, I found a whole bunch of really rustic, old, vintage little appliances for the kitchen. And I nailed them up on the wall. And it looks really cool when there's different shadows at different times of day and everything. And I did get this over Christmas, but it's kind of rusty. It's like 80, 90 years old, so I can't use it to cook with. And I haven't figured out a way to mount it above my stove yet because of this thing. But this is one of my mixers. Should I try to get my beaters out, my electric beaters?
You could try.
All right. Okay, let me see how that goes.
Oh, thank you. Somebody commented that our kitchen. Thank you. I like our kitchen.
Yeah, it's very cute.
We spent 2 days cleaning it.
You're not supposed to say that live, honey. Our kitchen looks like this all the time.
There it is.
Okay, I am going to try my little aqua hand mixer here and see if.
Yeah, see
if
that's
you hear a blast of noise. I apologize. Give me a second.
It still takes a while to make this whipped cream actually set.
I would like a KitchenAid mixer eventually. It's just my problem is I don't have a lot of counter space, so I'm not sure where I'd put it. Like, that is something I'd want to.
How long do we whip it for?
I don't know.
It's so firm. Isn't it?
Stiff. I feel like this is not going to be stiff.
Okay, stay tuned for just a second. I'm going to plug this in. If you see me get splattered and stuff, I'm sorry. It's just, we'll see what happens.
Right?
That's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, it did fluff it up a little bit here, so
It's fluffy.
see. And I'm going to pour mine in this little Tupperware thing and then stick it in the refrigerator.
Yeah, do you want to go grab a Tupperware thing, babe? Here, put this in the sink and grab a Tupperware.
Yeah, I've got the same thing, and I'm just going to pour it just a generic Tupperware.
But actually, why don't we grab a bowl? Up on top.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna go stick this in the fridge. Or the ice box.
Into a refrigerated pan. Oh yeah, that's much nicer than my my failed tofu experiment.
Oh, Kenton, yeah.
I'm gonna eat my final product while we talk because it looks really yummy. And again, if you guys tried this recipe, let us know. Tag us, tell us, send us pictures. It would be fun to compare notes.
I'm gonna put this in the fridge.
All right, when everybody's put theirs in the fridge, we'll get into the collecting and the history here.
Kenton, we're missing you Cinecon weekend too. Can't believe that we're not having it this year.
I know they did do an online version of it though, and I'm really glad that they did that.
But there's
Yeah,
no
it's not the same as being engaged version, but so in the previous episodes that I did with each of you, we did a pretty long dive into Ann Dvorak and Norma Shearer. So what I wanted to do right now, and I forgot to do on Christina's episode, and I'm so sorry, is to talk about her upcoming Jane Russell biography and to do a cover reveal.
Yes, which to be fair, I forgot to talk about my Jane Russell book too. So shame on both.
That was a complicated thing. So
yeah. So even though like Harel came up as the topic of conversation on the Ann Dvorak episode, and I said, oh, I should mention Jane Russell, and still failed. So let me bring up.
I can't wait to see it.
Okay, let me go ahead and share the cover. Oh, Carrie, you need to
screen shareability.
So yes, so I have completed my book on Jane Russell, which is scheduled to come out on June 15th, 2021. Once again from University Press of Kentucky, who published my Ann Dvorak book.
Multiple participants can share simultaneously.
Okay, and the cover just came last week. And
oh, yay! I love the title.
Can I view full screen? So there we go. So that is, that's the cover. So I'm tremendously happy about it. I think it turned out fantastic. And I wrote a little blog post about why I chose to use this photo, which is from Macau from 1951, rather than using one of the Harel haystack photos, which are very iconic, very well known. And originally I was going to use one of those photos. And as I, wrote the book, it really came out is that there's much more to Jane Russell than, this photo session that she did in 1942. And I think she gradually really came to hate those photos, and they really followed her entire life. So she spent decades being asked about those photos. Her publisher made her use one of the haystack photos on the cover of her own book. So I figured, after getting to know Jane a little bit, I think she probably would hate me writing a book on her. So I thought the least I could do was use a photo that she didn't hate so much.
And by the way, when your book comes out, which is next year, right, for her centenary?
Yeah, it is. It's coming out. Yeah. So Jane would have been 100 next June 21st. My book is slated to come out on June 15th. I'll stop sharing. So it is going to be available for pre-order very, very soon. And I do want to encourage people to order the book from Larry Edmonds here in Hollywood. So he'll be taking not orders right away, but he'll be creating an interest list. So anybody that orders the book from Jeff at Larry Edmonds, I will sign it. So that's how, because who knows if we're all going to be leaving our houses even next June or not. So I don't know if I'll be able to do personal appearances, but if you want to get a signed copy of the book, you can order it from Larry Edmonds. And because, as we know, I am like a compulsive collector. So during the course of my research, I bought way more Jane Russell stuff than I needed. So I think I'm using, like 80 or 90 photos in the book. Darin, how many do I own? Like 400, maybe?
400, yeah.
At least, because Darin scanned them all for me. So I did end up getting almost every single costume test from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. And so what I've done is I'm making up a postcard set of 6 of the costume tests. So I thought the first 75 people that order the book from Larry Edmonds will also get the postcard set, which are 6 of the costume tests.
I can't wait. I'm going to do that right after we finish
So yes, you can go to the contact us at Larry Edmonds. I hope I talked to him the other day, so I hope he's ready for people to start contacting him. And so right now you're not paying up front, you just get on the interest list. And Gable's tugging on my skirt. Yes.
We have 4 people who are saying love the cover, and the one person said Jane Russell loved her, already pre-ordered a copy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you to whoever pre-ordered a copy. So I hope, yeah, I'm pleased with how it turned out. She, I knew nothing about her going in, so it was it's been really interesting. She's a fascinating person, so I really enjoyed getting to know her.
You know what's funny is in the course of researching all these Hollywood recipes, you told me Jane didn't cook at all and hated cooking. So the 2 times I've found Jane Russell recipes, I text you and you always text back lies. She hated cooking. So we kind of jokingly talked about when your book comes out, maybe we could make a recipe that Jane didn't make and then just do dishes because she liked to do dishes.
Yeah, Jane didn't mind cleaning the kitchen, but she let her husband do all the cooking. Yeah, she very loudly proclaimed throughout her entire life how much of a cook she was not. So yeah, anything attributed as a Jane Russell recipe is totally false.
Yeah, we should just order Postmates and then clean our kitchens and then look at your Jane memorabilia.
Yes, we can do that because I have a lot of Jane memorabilia now.
Yes, and that would be, so we will do that next summer when your book is ready for release.
Yeah, Gable.
And then we have somebody saying, yes, order from Larry Edmonds Bookshop and help save a Hollywood landmark.
Yes, order from Larry Edmonds. So,
Yes.
So Larry Edmonds is my official bookseller for the Jane Russell book.
And they do so much for the Hollywood history community. They support a lot of tour guides like myself. They're a great place, and we've got to do everything we can to help keep them afloat.
Yeah.
So talking about Jane kind of segues into my first question for you guys is, other than Ann and Norma, your respective subjects, what other stars do you collect on?
So do you want me to start, Darin?
Yeah.
I'm very much Ann. Like Ann is my love. I am an Ann completist. I will buy anything Ann Dvorak as long as it's original. I don't buy copies of things because Darin and I are snobs that way. But over the years, there have been really dry periods where I don't find anything. And so I would get just really frustrated and decide I'm going to collect on somebody else. So right here is my box of frustration. Not these.
We should all have a box of frustration.
Yeah, this is my box as a frustrated collector. And over the years, anybody I started collecting on, it would be incredibly short-lived. It would be really random. Robert Montgomery, that was a big one, like about 16 years ago.
Yeah, for about a month.
You have a lot of films with Norma.
I really like him. But I dragged out some of the ones briefly. We were briefly obsessed with the Big House. So I would collect Big House photos. So this is this great candid with Cliff Edwards visiting the set of the Big House. So I have, random Big House photos. So I have that. At one point, Miriam Hopkins, I have a handful of Miriam Hopkins. I do Jack Carson at one point. Virginia Fields, Kitty from Waterloo Bridge. I have a handful of photos of her. And then at one point, I was going to start collecting movie stars at their San Fernando Valley homes. I got as far as 2. I got Glenda Farrell in Studio City and Paul Muni in Encino. So yeah, I think Karen Morley, I got angry and bought some Karen Morley lobby cards once. So yeah, this is just a random weird box, but I guess at this point, Jane Russell's the other collection that I have.
Darin, do you have a proverbial box of frustration?
Well, I collected on Mary Carlisle just because I knew her. So that was going to be I'm going to pick up a few things here and there and have her autograph them. And now I have dozens to probably 100 lobby cards and hundreds of photos on Mary. Of course, Sue Collins, because I know her. There just isn't that much available on her. And I'm trying to think of who else. I've been like Christina. Sometimes you just go to a paper show or some sort of event, and it would just be this one star that was at every table. So Christina and I were like, well, screw it. Remember Virginia Bruce when we used to be so angry about it.
I would see her. We never bought her. Well, how many photos of Wayne Morris do you have? Didn't you collect on him briefly?
No, we went to a paper show and I didn't buy a thing. And a guy had a box of them for $1 each. So I bought 10 photos of Wayne Morris just out of spite.
You moved it down.
And then for 6 months, people kept asking me if I was a Wayne Morris collector and trying to get me to buy their stuff.
I was born Halloween night, and for me, I was originally collecting. The only thing I really collected is photos of stars at Halloween, like pinups and photo sessions, etc. And then my friend Mary Mallory and she collected all the other holidays, and we kind of started talking about our respective collections, and we're friends. And then we were like, well, I'm sure someone's done a book on these. And then we figured out no one had. And so we did the book Hollywood Celebrates the Holidays a couple of years ago. Well, I think it's 5 years ago. And we still collect on those, but finding originals is really hard. It's really expensive. It's kind of a hit or miss proposition. So
yeah, and I would occasionally grab, so I do have a Barbara Stanwyck with a Christmas wreath. So yeah, I would occasionally grab, I have Betty Davis in here with a wreath. So yeah, just really random things. Gable, we have questions, comments?
We just have comments.
Comments
about like your book and about like I should do the other comments.
Okay.
There's like comments like about the photos, and there's comments about.
Well, why don't you? Okay, go ahead, read.
So
Stand up, baby, so everybody can see your wonderful face.
So we have about the Jane Russell book from Terrence Powell's Kennett. We have this gentleman always preferred the brunette Jane Russell.
Yeah.
And then from Kenton Bymaster, we have I Love Karen Morley.
Yes. Isn't Karen Morley wonderful? I think she might make an interesting, and she was somebody who was alive when I first started researching the Ann Dvorak book, and I just couldn't get to her, unfortunately. Okay.
And then we have from Ruth Munsack, we have That's How I Feel About My Love of Cary Grant, Christina Rice.
Oh, I love Cary Grant too. I've never collected on him. I don't know if he's expensive or not.
He's expensive.
I actually would like to find a Cary Grant collector. So if anybody out there collects on Cary Grant, contact me, because doing these Hollywood Kitchen episodes and doing anything creative is kind of a lifeline for me during this rough year. And I think a lot of people feel that way too. I know we all perk up when we get together and do this stuff. And with Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'm kind of looking at possibly being here alone, and it's really stressing me out. So I'm thinking, I found a Cary Grant apple pie recipe, and I thought, oh, if I could do that a day or two before Thanksgiving and maybe get a Cary Grant collector. And I'm kind of trying to line up some October, November, December episodes to really cheer myself up and hopefully cheer up other people and bring something fun and cool out there into the world, to distract us all. So if you know any collectors, any Cary Grant experts, or any other collectors, please just contact me through Facebook. I'd love to hear about them.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing I collect are vintage photos of actors and actresses having their hair and makeup done, either on the set or in the dressing rooms. Because I represent hair and makeup artists in the entertainment industry, and I just think it's absolutely fascinating. So I've got hundreds of those, and it's another dream to actually make a book. I did approach a major makeup manufacturer about actually partnering up on it, and their problem is that they want the photos to be in color, which I still think, there just aren't any color behind the scenes photos.
Yeah, they're not easy to come by.
No, not at all. There's a few in the 50s. I have a Jane Mansfield and a couple of others in the 50s, but otherwise they're all black and white, but they're great photos.
Oh man, that makeup company doesn't understand.
I know. So, and they're a brand that really appreciates vintage Hollywood. They really promote it as one of their components. And they were just, no, they want it to be in color. They think people won't get the point unless it's in color.
I'm sorry, I get, because my job is when I'm not writing books, I oversee the photo collection at the Los Angeles Public Library, which is, probably like 90% or more, 95% black and white. And more, I'm getting people contacting me asking for color. So I don't know what's driving that. But black and white photography.
So, my ultimate goal is to put together a coffee table book on Norma, which I have a feeling is probably going to end up being self-published. I can't really find a publisher to back it. They just don't feel like there's a market for Norma. Yeah, that's what I always get.
To be honest, we'll get a little sidetracked on publishing for a second, but I've actually considered self-publishing because I've done 2 books through small publishers. And on one hand, you have a name publisher and they send it to shops, and that's cool and all. but I feel like you do 98% of the work and get like 2% of the royalties. And there's been some creative stuff where I wanted a certain thing and they're like, no, we're not doing that. And unless you're a major author, you just don't get a lot of creative control and it's extremely frustrating. So I'm kind of mixed on whether or not to do future projects through a real publisher or just try to do it.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on what your end goal is. So, you know, with like these biographies, they're like such an insane amount of work. And I want them to have the biggest reach possible. And for me as a librarian, that means getting these books into libraries. So with self-publishing or small publishers, the books aren't necessarily going to get into libraries. So like the distribution's there, because again, it's never about the money. You just don't make, I'm not quitting my job at the library anytime soon. So for these, long biographies, I want to go with a publisher. But at some point, I would love to do an Ann Dvorak coffee table book because I have so much stuff. Like that is 100% going to be self-published, and that's fine because I just want to, the last time I was with you, I had the scrapbook of her honeymoon, and I made a little book of that, and I just wanted to put it out. I didn't care how many copies it sold. I just wanted to put it out there for people that wanted it. So yeah, I think it just depends on what your goal is. Like I want, with Anne and Jane, like I want it to really get into people's hands and I want them to read it. And if that's checking it out through the library, that's great. Whereas, a coffee table book on Anne, I think there's a pretty small market. So I will probably just end up doing that myself.
Yeah, I know when Mark Vieira did his big book on Irving Thalberg a couple of years ago, like it's a coffee table size and it's beautiful. And the publishers wouldn't let him put Irving Thalberg on the cover. So it's actually Irving Thalberg and the Story of MGM Hollywood with a picture of Joan Crawford on the cover.
Like a super sexy picture of Joan Crawford.
It's a great photo, but the book isn't about her at all.
And you think that, and looking at it, you think it is.
Yeah.
It's definitely a mixed bag, I think, with these things. Another question for you guys is, what is the crown jewel in each one of your respective collections and why?
You go, Christina, and I'm going to run and grab mine. We're going to get it out.
Mine is hanging on my wall, and I didn't want to bring the computer over there, so I actually had Gable take a photo of it earlier. So I'm going to share my screen again. And so this,
oh, that's beautiful.
My favorite thing. So this is it is a 3-sheet from the 1935 film Bright Lights with Joey Brown, Ann Dvorak, and Patricia Ellis. And so this is, what is this? 27 by 72. So it's gigantic. And I think it's my favorite poster. I mean, the honeymoon scrapbook is my other crown jewel, but this poster I absolutely love. After Anne walked out on her Warner Brothers contract in 32 to go on an 8-month European honeymoon, and she came back and Warner Brothers worked her to death, but she wasn't really promoted. So a lot of her films from 33 to 36, her remaining years at Warner Brothers, she tends to not be on a lot of the smaller paper, but she is on the bigger paper. She's on the 3-sheet and the 6-sheet and the 24-sheet. And so I actually saw this in a press book at USC, and it was in black and white, and I just thought it was such a gorgeous poster, and I would probably never find it. And a couple of years later, I used to, when I was in grad school, in order to avoid doing my schoolwork, I would sometimes just spend hours upon hours upon hours scouring the internet for movie poster dealers. And so I actually found this poster. It was a dealer in Sweden had it. And I think I paid, like $300 for it, and had it restored and framed, and I absolutely love it. I don't think I've ever seen it anywhere else. So that I think is the crown jewel of my collection. And there's Gable tugging on my skirt. What's up?
We have 3 people: Terrence Powell's piano, Penton Bymaster, and Doug Stewart, saying that the Bright Lights 3-sheet is awesome.
The Bright Lights 3-sheet is absolutely awesome. So that is my crown jewel.
I love the colors in old posters. They just do not make them like that anymore, as the saying goes.
Not at all.
They're pretty incredible. And mine would be Norma's copy of her autobiography that was never published.
Ooh.
So it's actually 7 volumes, plus it's got a supplement thing to it, and it's in these little individual binders. So she's got Hollywood, New York, her introduction in Montreal, and it goes up to about 1932. So, and it's pretty fascinating. She doesn't really dive deep into anything. She spends the first chapter talking about how this isn't going to be a tell-all book, and it's definitely not a tell-all book, but she has a lot of great first-person stories, and she really goes into detail on a lot of the films and her silence, why she didn't like the directors, what her experience were on the films, her experiences in Hollywood, her experiences in early New York, and then what it was like to be an MGM star. So she talks about her relationship with Joan Crawford. She talks about her relationship with Jeanette MacDonald, Myrna Loy. I gave the Hedy Lamarr quote to my Hedy Lamarr collector. So she talks about, what a beauty Hedy was. But it's a little meandering, but it is really fascinating, but it doesn't really kind of get to a point. And she worked on this throughout most of the 50s. And I think she had a really hard time getting through it because she was having to revisit a lot of good and bad times. And I think it ends around 1932 because her husband had, his second heart attack, Irving Thalberg, in 1933. And that's when sort of the dream of MGM started to, really become a reality for her. So, and around that time, Clark Gable died, Louis B. Mayer died in 58. So she was having a lot of problems, I think, just getting through it. So it gets to a certain point and ends, but she sent this to a colleague of hers at MGM to get their opinion. And he writes a review of it for her. And then he just never sent it back to her. So it stayed in this guy's family and it came from them. So, and there is another version of this, which is an earlier unedited version that was at her estate sale 9 years ago. And I think it sold for $6,000 or $7,000. So there is another one that's floating around out there, but this one is her edited version. It's got lots and lots of pencil notations and just little comments that she made. So I'm trying to find who typed this for her. They could still be around. If it's in the 50s, there's so many people that were connected with her, and she wasn't isolated like Gavin Lambert paints her in his biography. So, when I do write my biography, I'm really going to make a point of that. But I'm trying to find these firsthand folks that have these conversations. And I've had a really good time. A lot of people that were friendly with her in her world actually have great first-person stories about her and how much fun she was. And, she wasn't a recluse at all. And, when I did my last cooking show, I talked about how she liked to stand on her head at parties. So I went and actually dug up a photo. And if I get it without a glare on it, there's a.
Can you post a digital copy of that?
I totally put a digital copy. So this was taken at the Beverly Hills Hotel in 1939. So I have a photo of her standing on her head in 1925 that was in a movie. In 1932 that Harrell shot on her swimming pool in Santa Monica. And then this one in 39. And then I know that she continued to do it through the 40s. So, and these photos of her standing on her head, I coveted for probably 20 years. And I could never get one. They'd come up on eBay. They would go for outrageous prices. Or I'd find them at a paper show and they would be absolutely nuts. So probably in the last 10 years is when I found the 3 that I actually own.
Well, I was going to ask this kind of leads to my next question. What are some of the most unexpected items that you found in your collecting years? And what were you just super surprised to come across? Like you never thought you'd find this particular item or this particular fact. So do you have any things that sort of can be described that way?
Christina?
I think some of my favorite Ann Dvorak things, which, I to this day, I think are kind of crazy. So Anne was a chorus girl at MGM from 1929 to 1930. And so a number of years ago, I was in New York, and there used to be a shop. Well, I guess it's still kind of there, Jerry Ollinger's movie memorabilia store. And so I went in and And when you went in, if I would ask for photos of Ann Dvorak, they would bring out reproductions. They had tons of reproductions. And I think a lot of people would go there. But if you went in and asked for Ron's rare folder, they would bring you the originals, which is what we collect. This is the one area where we're snobby. And so they had a bunch of photos of Anne, single shots of her as a chorus girl.
Oh, those are beautiful.
We have a question. Okay, well, what's the question, babe?
Do you have any autographs in your collection?
Oh, do we have any autographs? Oh God, autographs? Yeah, I have tons of autographs in my collection. I have a lot of cut signatures, which are pretty easy to find and should never be too expensive. I have signed photographs. I have radio contracts. I have film contracts. I have letters, and I have, from the end of her life, I have a bunch of canceled checks that she wrote at the very end when I think she was going by Ann McKim. So I have tons of signatures. I know Darin does too.
Oh, I got tons. I have signatures, letters, postcards.
So these are some of my favorite things that it still kind of blows me away that I have all of these photos, these individual photos of Ann as a chorus girl.
Oh,
I said it was 2003, and Jerry Ollinger was never, you didn't really get deals at his shop. And these were $30 a piece. And this was, again, I was in grad school at the time and didn't have a lot of money. So $30 was kind of crazy. And so I think I bought 2 of them at the beginning of the trip. And the rest of the week we were there, I just agonized over them. Like, oh my God, do I go back and get, I don't know, it's so much money. I don't know. And so our last morning there, and we were going to be heading to the airport. So we kind of had like not a lot of time that last day. And so Darin knocks on the door of my hotel room. I open it up. I don't even say hi to him. I go, do I get those photos? And he looks at me and he goes, 3 photos of Ann Dvorak come up on eBay for $90. Buy it now. Do you do it? And I said, oh my God, yes, I do. And he goes, let's go. And so we went and I got the remaining 3. And I have never regretted it because these are just some of my absolute favorites. But yeah, it's to this day, it blows me away that I have these. So this was unexpected. With the snapshot photo album that I showed last time of her, her photos from her honeymoon, that thing, like that was a holy grail for me that I never expected. And the most surprising thing I found out during my research was that in the 60s, Anne wrote an unabridged, or I guess it was an abridged, an 18-volume abridged history of the world, which she recorded, I think on reel to reel of her reading it. So she created an audiobook of this, which she then wanted to market to universities, and it didn't go anywhere. I feel like I've never been able to find that manuscript or any of the recordings. I hope those are still out there. So that's something that I would love to find one of these days is Historical Digest. I do have a piece of letterhead that she had made called Historical Digest. So I have her letterhead. I just haven't been able to find the writings or the recordings.
Darin, what's your most unexpected find in your years of collecting?
Well, Christina and I we have a funny story about this. So we've been into antique stores and comic book stores and just anything that's got any sort of paper all over the world. So what was it, 10, 15 years ago? It's been a long time ago.
I think was it that same, might have been the next year, maybe 2004?
Yeah, around 2004. So we had been out for the day and we'd gone, oh, and by the way, somebody asked the name of that shop. It's Jerry Ollinger's. Jerry passed away last year, but the shop is still open.
More than last year.
A couple of years ago, yeah, but definitely call them and tell them what you're looking for and that you want originals, and they'll actually pull them from their warehouse and have them ready for you.
Yeah, it's OHLINGERS, and
yeah,
he was there forever in New York.
Yeah, cigar chomping, bad teeth, kind of a grumpy guy. Yeah,
great. So.
Yeah, he was a character.
Yeah,
we were in a place called the Time Machine, which was a comic book memorabilia sort of shop. I think it was on 14th Street in New York.
Yeah, it was upstairs.
And usually I'm the one who keeps Christina going. I get her motivated. Like she'll just peter out and like, I'm over it, I'm done. And so on this day I was just done. And we went in and I just I'm like, I'm gonna go sit in a corner. I'm tired. I'm hot. I don't want to do this. Never finding anything Norma in these shops. And suddenly she just starts pulling out Norma photos like crazy. She goes, here's one, here's another one, here's another one. And it was probably, like 40 photos, 30 photos. It was a lot.
A lot. And you were just
Right?
sitting there so smugly not doing it. I'm like, aren't you going to look? No, I'm not going. There's not going to be anything.
There's just not going to be anything.
Yeah.
So,
And they had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photos to look through.
yeah. So, and it turned out that the Lawrence Quirk, the author of the first Norma biography, had sold those photos to that dealer years ago and had lived in New York. And he wanted a decent price. So I ended up getting this huge stack of these great original Norma photos for a great price. And I knew where they came from. So, I'm always like, just keep chugging away because you never know where you're going to find stuff.
Yeah. And we kept going back. We'd always go back. I don't know that I ever found anything Ann at that shop. Remember he told you he thought he had more Norma photos? And
Yeah.
but he finally, it was Merle Oberon, right?
No, it's Greg Garson.
I thought he had Merle Oberon too. No, but
Yeah.
we went back a couple years, the next year, we would continuously go back. And he had a bunch of Greer Garson photos. And I totally don't collect on Greer Garson, but they were so pretty that we bought them. All these years later, I have this beautiful stash of Greer Garson photos that we bought at the machine.
Yeah.
$10.
Yeah, they were great photos.
These are stamped Willingers.
Yeah, they're all Willinger, like major photographer, gorgeous photos.
Is this Sherry Ollinger's in New York? Is this kind of where you guys have found the best stuff? Or like, what is your place that has yielded the most success of you all?
Well, I mean, for me, like early on, a lot of places would yield because nobody collected on Ann Dvorak. And so because Darin was the one who introduced me to the hobby in 1997. And so at that time, there were a lot of shops around Hollywood and Los Angeles, and they all had stuff. So every time I went into a shop, they all had Ann Dvorak. So I have found, like Larry Edmonds, like some of my earliest photos, I cleaned out Larry Edmonds 20 plus years ago. So there's Danny Schwartz, who's still around. He's out in Simi Valley. Like we found great photos there over the years, and he continuously gets stuff in. Ollinger's was great for photos. I think for paper, probably Last Moving Picture Company.
Yeah, definitely Last Moving Picture Company. And then Bob Coleman, who you ended up working for.
Yeah, there used to be a place called the Hollywood, Poster Exchange. Hollywood Poster Exchange, and it was on Santa Monica and La Cienega. And Bob Coleman owned it. And I worked there 20 years ago this year that I worked at that shop. And that shop came about, there used to be a theater in downtown Los Angeles called the Cozy Theater. And it was a last run theater. So it's not one of the movie palaces. It was just one of the many kind of run of the mill theaters that were on Broadway in addition to the movie palaces. And because it was last run, whoever owned it, they just kept all the paper. So they would serve like as a poster exchange for other smaller theaters when movies would rerun. And so the theater and the collection was sold, I think in the late 60s.
Yeah.
And there was a guy, I think his name was Klaus. I don't remember his name, but he was just like an investor, bought the collection. And it was, it was the horror. It was like, it was, 30s Warner Brothers. It was MGM. So it was like Wizard of Oz. And there was Citizen Kane in that collection. It was like a primo collection. So this investor bought it and then found Bob Coleman, whose qualifications were he was a collector. So he was one of these people that started collecting in the 60s, like going to Larry Edmonds and getting their catalog. And so he ran the shop and I worked there, and they had, by the time I worked there, it had been like largely picked over. They still had amazing things, like absolutely amazing things. Let me pull out. And
I started going to him when I was around 13 or 14. And the first time I ever went in that shop, a little kid, I said, do you have anything on Norma Shearer? And he pulled out a We Were Dancing 2 half sheets, a bunch of lobby cards, and like 150 photos. And there was some other older collectors that were there. And, I'm just like, I can't believe this. I'm never going to be able to afford this. So Bob was being a show off that day. So he said, well, just for you, kid, $100 for the whole thing. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack right on the spot. And the people around him were like applauding him for being so cool, for letting this little kid buy this stuff. So, and I actually pulled out one of the first lobby cards that I got from him, which was a We Were Dancing. And then on the back, it has the Cozy Theater stamp on it. So, and Christina and I find this Cozy Theater stamp all over the world, and we know where they came from.
So there's my first lobby card. My first Ann Dvorak card I ever got was from the Hollywood Poster Exchange. Darin took me there on our lunch break when I was interning for him. And yeah, there's the Cozy Theater stamp on the back. And then here's the first Ann Dvorak lobby card Darin ever bought. And because at the time this was $15, 1.5, which was a ton of money for me because this is when I was an undergrad. And so Darin bought this card, which is like totally the prettier one. So I don't know why I didn't buy that. And like 10 years later, I was like, dude, when are you going to give me that card? No, you totally did. But yeah, so here's a Bright Lights lobby card, which I think I bought from like a dealer in New Jersey. And then it comes to me and there's Cozy Theater. The Cozy Theater comes home.
It's a boomerang. It just keeps flying around the world and coming back.
Cozy Theater have gone all over. And it's tugging on my skirt. Yes, dear.
We have another question. What is your favorite Jane Russell movie?
Oh, what is my favorite Jane Russell movie? I mean, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is one of my favorite movies. So, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is. But other than that one, I actually really like Foxfire with Jeff Chandler, which I think is a really interesting movie, and it's a beautifully shot movie. So I think that's the one that I actually really came to like. But Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is one of the greatest movies ever made. So
it never gets old.
I've seen that movie probably 80 times. And Gable
Darin had a party at his condo that he invited me to, and he had it filled with guys who had never seen Gentlemen Prefer Blondes before. And he showed it on his big screen. I thought they were going to rip the roof off the building. They went nuts. It was so funny.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, the movie just starts in high gear and never stops.
Never stops. And we have another question.
It tears the house down every single time. It's so good.
Stop in New York.
Name of the shop in New York. So there's Jerry Ollinger's. That's the one that's still there. The one where we found the Norma and Greer Garsons was called Time Machine. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it's still there.
I think it's a karate studio.
The other one. What?
I think it's a karate studio now.
Oh, so yeah, that's, when we first started Darin's been collecting longer than me. But when I came on board, there were still a lot of shops just all around. And every time, we would go somewhere, we'd always check the yellow pages, and there would always, if it was a major city, there would always be at least one movie poster shop. But then they all started, I think, because of online, because of eBay, they all started closing. And so we would go, remember, Darin, we were in San Francisco, and there was a shop, and it had like an ad in the yellow pages, and we called, and they had closed 6 months earlier. And then we were in Chicago, and there was a movie poster shop that was actually in like a mainstream travel guide, and it had closed months earlier.
The Chicago one, you found some photos. Wasn't that some weird shop?
That shop by Wrigley Field.
Yeah.
But that place, that closed. Like the owner passed away, I think last year. And so that place is gone now as well. Like the first time I went to London was in 2002, and there was a few poster shops, and I went like 3 years later, and they were all gone. Yeah. So unfortunately, there's not as many options as there used to be. There was the Beverly Garland. Somebody I know in the comments mentioned meeting Karen Morley at the Beverly Garland show. So at the Beverly Garland Holiday Inn, like every few times a year, there was a memorabilia show, and oh God, we always found great stuff there.
Yeah, great stuff.
Like that would be like the night before it was like Christmas. Like I couldn't sleep because I was so excited about going to the Beverly Garland show. And that show just gradually moved to Burbank, and now it's by the airport, and it gradually became more about the autographs than the dealers.
Yeah.
I have another question for you guys. Darin had mentioned the cigar chomping guy that was showing off and gave him that great deal on stuff. I assume you both have probably met an incredible cast of characters in this hobby, or this research rather. What are some of the most vivid and maybe even outrageous characters that you've come across during your years as a collector?
God, every dealer is a character. Like they all are, I think a lot, because I worked Bob Coleman, and I usually just worked for store credit. Like I usually didn't have him pay me, and I think often he would give me good deals on things, and then would have like seller's remorse. So I would I would change whether I was gonna actually take money or buy things from him. Yeah, he was a character. God, collectors are just characters.
I mean, we, especially early on, we'd meet a lot of those really hardcore old school collectors that would say, that they were going to be buried with their collection. It was going to be burned because nobody was ever going to have it. And, it's in the days before you could actually scan images. So the competition over the images, the photos and the paper was really, really fierce. Now that we have the internet and you can, have accessibility to the images, it's not quite as fervent, but we met a lot of people that were really hardcore. And Christina and I always laugh because we'd have more people that would come over and say, you know the best Ann Dvorak stuff? Who? I do. Can I see it? No.
A lot of people but I think one of the most memorable, sorry, my dogs are barking. Let's see if you can get them to go outside, baby. Sorry, two dogs. Come on, guys. Go outside. Go attack the Amazon guy outside. Okay. Sorry. I think one of the most memorable afternoons we had was a guy who I found in the Yellow Pages. Again, anytime I would even go to a different neighborhood of Los Angeles, I would look in the Yellow Pages. And I was on the west side, and there was a guy in Palisades who was advertising as a memorabilia store. And so I called him, and he said I might have some Ann Dvorak. And so Darin and I went, and it was a guy, his name was Louis Leipold, and it was his house. So he had a house in the Palisades, and it had been the house of an artist. So it had a high ceiling studio at the front. And this guy's entire house was floor to ceiling movie posters. But it was, he had crazy stuff. And did he have an All This in Heaven Too thick sheet?
Yeah, he loved Betty Davis. He had everything Betty.
Yeah, he had the most amazing things, and he was just absolutely lovely. And I think he basically he advertised himself because I think he wanted to connect with other collectors. And so we just spent an afternoon just looking through his stuff. He had a Racing Lady insert. So I was able to purchase that from him. I don't know if he had anything Norma. I don't remember.
He had a lot of Norma. He had a Barrett's and Wimble Street insert, some other things, but they were just way out of reach for me at that point.
Yeah, but that was just a wonderful afternoon. And he died probably about a year later, so not too long after. I don't know what happened. I don't know if his collection got auctioned off or not, but it turned out he was the author of a seminal calculus book.
Yeah, really intelligent guy.
Really, yeah, he was fantastic. But man, what an incredible collection that guy had. He was fantastic.
I want to ask you guys also another question. If someone out there watching us is new to the world of Hollywood history and they want to start their own collections, what advice would you give to someone that's just looking to get their feet wet and get started?
There are people out there who just kind of collect whatever appeals to them, which you can do. My box of frustration are things that have appealed to me. I don't know. I think it helps to be a little bit more focused. Otherwise it can, because there's so much stuff. For every movie that was released by a Hollywood studio, there's, 2 half sheets, 1 to 2, 1 sheet, a 3 sheet, a 6 sheet, 8 lobby cards, window cards, over 100 photos. So I think it helps to focus on what you're doing. I think, if you want to collect on movie titles or stars that the mainstream know about, it's probably going to be really pricey. So, lobby cards from Casablanca and Wizard of Oz, I could never afford.
Yeah, just not reachable.
Yeah, and Gable, hold on one second, babe. And we have some more questions. So, but I think there are so many different ways you can collect on things. So, Darin and I focus on a particular actress, but when I worked at the movie poster shop, there was just a wide variety of things that people would collect on. So we had one collector who bought movies that had gender bending. So if it had women dressed as men or men dressed as women, they would focus on that. There was one guy who collected anything that showed the old diving equipment, the underwater big the big helmet, the round helmets, which there was actually, I would find things all the time. I'd be like organizing the shop and I would come across these. Somebody else collected on movies that showed men in gorilla suits carrying women.
Yeah.
There was no shortage. There's absolutely no shortage of that. At one point I toyed with collecting on like images of librarians. So there's a lot of different things, a lot of different ways to approach the hobby. But just know, like, if you want to collect Universal horror, I hope you have a lot of equity in your house. And even then, it probably won't be enough. So, but if you're just collecting on, again, I started collecting on Ann Dvorak because nobody else did, so I could afford it. So it can be, a somewhat affordable hobby. And Darin,
and I've looked out on some Norma stuff over the years. You just have to be really persistent about it, and you just never know where you're going to find them. Years ago, there was a poster shop, Last Moving Picture Company, that was up on Hollywood Boulevard. And the guy who owned it, Morris Everett, we'd see him at paper shows. And he's like, you need to come to my place in Cleveland. You need to come to my place in Cleveland. And I bought a big folder of Ann Dvorak photos right after I met Christina. And like every time on her birthday or Christmas, I'd give her one photo. And that was another time where a couple years into it, she's like, dude, just give me the rest of the photo already, or the folder already, which I did. So we traveled to Belgium looking for Belgian posters. We went to London, going to paper shows. We went all over the world, but we never went to Cleveland. So finally, about 5 years ago, Eric and I had a holiday trip, and I planned it all around going to Cleveland to go to this shop. Because this guy had been telling us for like 30 years, like, come to my shop, come to my shop. So we drove to a shop out on the end of a road, and Christina and I went last year. We went last year. And it was just the Mecca, and you had to dig. And he's a true dealer. He's a really nice guy, but if he feels like you're another dealer or you're buying it to flip it, he is just not, very accommodating. But if you go in there and you're really enthusiastic, and I think with a lot of the dealers, when you sort of show that, like, this is my hobby and I'm collecting this and only this, they're a little kinder to you generally. So we finally went to Cleveland. How many photos did you get, Christina?
Oh man, I must have gotten at least 60 photos, right? Like most of them Ann Dvorak handed.
Yeah, I got 600 photos, like 120 Harels, and he also has a huge silent collection, and he's a character. He doesn't want to organize his shop. He loves people that want to come in and dig and love the hobby. So I've gone for 3 or 4 days at a time, and I've got lobby cards from all of Norma's silents back to the very beginning. The ones that, if they didn't have her name on it, his kids, he had like his nephews working in the shop to organize it. So if it didn't have her name on it, they didn't know what it was. So I think I got like 60 lobby cards from him between 1920 and 1923 before Norma's names actually went on the card. So, it's just being diligent. And then when you actually are in those spaces, being very, I think, honest and enthusiastic. There's a certain amount of a poker face you have to have, but still having that enthusiasm that, I'm not here to flip this stuff. Because dealers,
I have no poker face. I'm really bad at it.
You always make me do it.
I just learned too that if you have friends that share your passion, like if I find something Norma Shearer, I immediately text you and send it to you. If you find something Hollywood holiday oriented, you let me know. So when you have a lot of friends and people in your life that know how much you love this stuff, it almost seems like it shows up.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have stuck with the hobby this long if it was just me doing it. Like, as much as I love the hunt, like Darin and I have largely done it together.
Yeah.
And we had, that's part of it. Like, we've had so much fun doing it. And like when we were in Cleveland last year, we were there. We went for 3 days. We spent between 8 and 12 hours at that shop, just digging. But there were times where it was like the two of us, because the shop had multiple rooms, and everybody else could just hear the two of us in a room just cackling, because we just get together and are digging and we just start cackling and have so much fun. And because we're both so familiar with, like I can spot Norma from a mile away, Darin can spot Ann Dvorak in a chorus from 3 miles away. I think that's like a huge, for us, it's been like the basis of our relationship for over 20 years, is just going and like digging and doing these things that most other people wouldn't do.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. How are we doing on the comments?
We
do have
have
some
a
questions.
question. We have a question. What is the contact info for the Cleveland dealer?
I mean, the name of the shop is the Last Moving Picture Company, and the dealer is Morris Everett. So you should be able to just Google that, and it should come up. And he's not in Cleveland; he's
It's
outside Kirkland, Ohio.
Yeah.
And
And
we
you
also
should call him.
have his name again, which you just said.
Morris Everett.
And we have, do you guys remember the garage that was on Sunset, usually open on Saturdays only? It was near
Yeah.
the Rock and Roll Ralph's. I used to find great magazine covers and lobbies there.
That's from
By the
Kenton.
way, that's from Ken.
That was Back Alley. Remember Back Alley?
It was on Sunset.
It was on Sunset. It's behind a barber shop, like kitty corner Rock and Roll Ralph's. And that place was only open on Saturdays. And it was just it could have easily flooded out. It was like just a beat up old garage. And I remember
That's the back lot that ultimately moved to Hollywood Boulevard then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those guys.
I never went on Sunset. But we
Nice,
did
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and because I had a Her Cardboard Lover 3 sheet that was $300. I'm like, I'm never gonna get this. I mean, I have it now, but they had a few good pieces, but they had tons and tons of magazines. But that was when movie magazines were like $50, and that was 25 years ago.
Yeah. Now it's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's a fun hobby. I think because so much of it is moved online, it's
Yeah.
not as much fun as it used to be. So
Like the dig.
nothing like digging, yeah, which I'm really sad to not have Cinecon, not have a dealer's room to go to it.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of the one day of the year, or the one weekend of the year we get to go dig, unless we want to fly to Ohio.
And they know it. Even if they don't know our names, they know it's like, hey, it's Norma Shearer and Ann Dvorak. I've got some pieces for you.
Yeah, we will gladly answer to Norma Shearer and Ann Dvorak. That is
I love the thrill of the hunt. Like that time I found that Norma Shearer scrapbook in an antique store in Georgia for Darin. I felt like an adrenaline high for days after that because it was like,
Oh yeah.
I never expected to find that,
Yeah, like one of my favorite photos I own is just this, really like run-of-the-mill clean still from our very own with Ann Dvorak and Ann Blythe, and it's crumpled up. But I found it at the bottom of a box at some junk shop in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And I saw it, and I'm like, Darin, look, Ann Dvorak, and you just like rolled your eyes and walked away.
Like, I mean, I found an 8x10 Laszlo Willinger of Norma from Marie Antoinette in the bottom of a box of photos in Hawaii in a junk shop. So, and it was stamped. It was an amazing photo. Like we found some really good and weird stuff.
Yeah.
Abel, we got any more questions or comments?
There's somebody
He posted a link. Look at the link. Somebody posted an article about Morris Everett, and he auctioned off a lot of his stuff at Profiles in History a few years back, but he's not all of it sold, and he still has a ton at his shop still.
How do you preserve your items? That's a good one for you, Christina.
That's a good one. Yeah, I'm an archivist by profession. So my lobby cards I have in these, they're called Hollinger boxes. So I have a lot of these Hollinger boxes, and just so I have easy access, I bag and board them. So there's acid-free boards and bags. And the one sheet I do have in bags and boards as well. I actually got, when I was getting my master's degree, I got 3 units of credit for properly archiving my Ann Dvorak collection.
So she did mine in the process of doing hers.
Yeah. So we have like flat files, like map cases. That's where I store like the half sheets and the one sheets, and the insert or in the flat files. My photos, I actually do. I have those in like a vertical file drawers, and I individually bag and board every one of my photos just so I have really easy access to them. So early on, I tried doing books. Do you still do books? Like the books for me were really hard because I want things to be in order, because all the photos, the studios would number them. So I like things to be in order and chronological order. So that's why I just individually bag and board, and that's what's worked best for me.
Yeah.
And where can budding collectors find archival items? Like I find my photo boxes at Sammy's Camera, but do you have any other resources or places where people can find the acid-free boxes? And
yeah, I'll order. It's like the boxes I'll order from Hollinger Metal Edge is one place. At the library, that's where we'll order things from. There's another website called University Products, and I think they're a little bit cheaper than Metal Edge. So I'll order things from University Products. And then I'll also do bags and boards from Bags Unlimited.
Yeah, Bags Unlimited has been the best for me. They're great.
Yeah, so I get things from Bags Unlimited as well.
Yeah, like I have to show you, like this is my project for this afternoon. So that is all of the photos that I need to file.
Oh my gosh.
Which just need to go into the filing cabinet. It's probably like 200 photos that I've sleeved that need to be put away.
So all mine are put away right now. I think I have 3 that I need to. I'm trying to. Darin scanned all of my photos, and there were things that I think had been just kind of sitting unfiled for like almost 10 years. So I'm trying to be better about it now. Somebody said they wish COVID was over because they're feeling a road trip to Ohio. That'd be fun. Maybe we could drive to Ohio. What do you think?
Well,
Or is that actually cutting into our digging time if we do that?
That we'd have to.
You know what would be fun to do if the world were perfect right now? Just rent an RV and pile a bunch of us in there, make a little roadshow documentary about our trip across America, see if we could go to different antique stores and collecting places all over the country and, you know, work together. That'd be so much fun to like do a collector's, like, what do you call it? Antiques roadshow only for film industry.
Yeah.
I mean, we find this stuff everywhere. I was on a trip once. Eric and I had gone up to Hearst Castle, and we got up the freeway in Santa Rosa, and there was an antique mall there. And I was having another one of those, like, I never find anything in these places. And I went in, and there was a booth that had clippings. It had like thousands of clippings, and they wanted like $0.25 each for these clippings. And I was sort of looking through them, and then I pull out the corner of a photo, and it's a photo of Greta Garbo. And I start pulling out photos like one after another. And it was 50 or 60 10 by 13 photos that were all MGM between 1936 and like 1938. So there was Garbo, Jeanette MacDonald, Eleanor Powell, no Norma, no Jean Harlow, but there was pretty much all of their other major stars. So I went up to the register and they were $10 each. And I thought, God, you know, they were sniped, they were originals. Went up to the register and I gave them to the lady, and she kind of looked me up and down and she goes, why are you buying all of these photos? And I just, best poker face, I said, you know, I rep hair and makeup artists, and I just thought it'd be nice to give these away as Christmas gifts. And she goes, well, give me a second, and leaves and comes back. And she goes, well, since you're buying them all, how about $8 a photo?
How long ago was that?
Oh, it's been like 5 years.
Yeah, so
So like
asking, are there any items you would not spend money on for vintage memorabilia? Like with Ann, I will buy anything Ann. Like, I don't care what it is. I just generally, unless it's like a crazy candid or a chorus girl photo that I can't find anywhere else, I don't buy like reproductions. So I want like original photos. But I mean, I will buy anything Ann, absolutely anything.
Yeah. I mean, I'll buy a really good copy if it's something I've just never seen before, just so I can have it as a reference.
Yeah. But generally, no, anything Ann. Absolutely anything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, as long as the price is right. So.
Well, I think this was a great episode, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me again. And if any of you out there have any further questions, I'm sure that Darin and Christina would be happy to answer them on Facebook. Thank you so much to Gable for moderating us. We really appreciate that. And thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of Hollywood Kitchen. More episodes are coming soon, so please stay tuned.
Absolutely. Thank you
for having us, Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie.
Bye.
Bye.